You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure to smash that like button. LSU, Mississippi State tomorrow, 5 o'clock. You going?
Yes.
What do you think the environment's going to be like?
I think it's going to be really good again. I do.
You do?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
I think you're going to have a little spillover from last weekend. I think from an environment and vibe standpoint, I think we'll see some of that. I hope we do at least. Okay. And look, this is a big game for the Tigers, man. I mean, it really is. If they can erase some of that negativity from the Florida State game by a win here and get you off in the SEC on the right foot.
One of the really cool things, too, is they're going to honor the 2011 LSU football team. 2011, one of the really disappointing things as an LSU fan, and there's just nothing we do about this, it's just the reality, is the 2011 season is largely, I don't want to say forgotten, but it's just not remembered fondly because of how it ended. And that's understandable. I mean, the loss to Alabama in the championship game is the worst loss in the history of LSU football. It was LSU's greatest season with the most dynamic player that any of us saw before Joe Burrow, of course, Tyrann Mathieu. And they just steamrolled everyone they played and were on the way to the best season in school history. And then the team that you already beat, who happened to be your biggest rival, beat you in the championship game in New Orleans. They just beat you, shut you out, embarrassed you. I mean, it put this... I mean, it's some of those things where you hate when you're right, but it's like I said the day after that game on Tuesday, I said that was the worst loss in the history of LSU football. Like, we will remember January 9th, 2012 forever. I mean, it will just be a date synonymous with, with infamy in LSU football. It's just, it will, even as great as 2019 was, and it's the greatest thing any of us ever seen. I'm insanely grateful for it. Whenever we talk about 2011, look, this is what we're talking about here right now. But I'm glad the 2011 team is going to be honored because that was an amazing season. There was so much good in that year. They won an SEC championship. They played for the national championship. And there were so much, maybe the greatest compliment you could pay is that every game you expected to see something spectacular, Tyrann or whoever it may be. And I love this, that they're going to have 4 guest captains, and our guy T-Bob's going to get to be one of them. So T-Bob is going to be one of the guest captains along with Willie B. Will Blackwell, who was an All-American on that team, Brandon Taylor, and Jordan Jefferson as well. They'll be the 4 guest captains for the game. So look, to see those guys, there's supposed to be, I think I saw Jacques tweet earlier, expecting some 60 or so former LSU players from that 2011 team to be there to be honored. So that'll be really cool, and I hope it's a great time honoring those guys in the 2011 SEC champions, who were the team that finished number 2 in the country because they lost a championship game to a team that shouldn't have been there. But anyway, excited to see the 2011 team honored, and excited to see how LSU has progressed. What's the old adage? The biggest improvement a team makes is week 1 to week 2.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to be true for LSU all season. I think it's going to be one of those years where every week you hope to get a little better at everything. And at the end of the season, you'll culminate and go, man, it's a pretty good team.
Yeah.
Like, they're not great, but they're like, look at how far they've come from the opener when you muffed 2 punts. You had a field goal and a PAT blocked, and all the issues that transpired in that game. I think every game they're probably going to get a little bit better, and I think we're going to see that tomorrow. Like, how do you feel about the matchup with Mississippi State?
I mean, I feel like it's a pretty even matchup. It's almost like kind of the same thing we talked about with Florida State. I mean, Mississippi State's strength, and it has been like that for a long time, is the defensive line. I mean, same thing with Florida State's. That doesn't bode well for LSU. But to your point, you got to hope that those guys have gotten better. I know LSU's made a couple changes, I think, on the offensive line that may have shored some things up. Got a guy healthy there. And the same thing is true for LSU, where a strong unit there's their defensive line. Mississippi State comes back with kind of a weak O-line there too. So I mean, there's just a lot of similarities to the first game. I think if you clean up the special team mishaps, if you take that away from the first game against Florida State, then you're squeaking a win out of that game, and you're probably feeling a lot better about today, And so, yeah, man, it exposed us in week 1 a little bit, but I feel really similar. And saying that, I think Florida State's quarterback is much more dynamic than what we're going to see here with Mississippi State.
Well, it's an interesting adjective to use to say dynamic, because I think you're right in saying that he's more dynamic.
Move around, athletic.
Yeah, Will Rogers is by far the best quarterback that Mike Leach has had in Starkville. In Starkville, he's by far the best quarterback he's had running this offense in Starkville. So, for me, it's not an easy game to pick, but what we expect to see to me is easy. I think it's basically the Florida State game over. You have a questionable offensive line against a good defensive front. I don't think LSU is going to be able to run the ball. I think, just like I said before that game, I think Jaden Daniels. I told you that week I thought Jaden Daniels would be the leading rusher. I think Jaden Daniels will be LSU's leading rusher, not because of design runs, but he's going to be pressured and he'll tuck it and run for 40 yards. Like the first play of the game against Florida State, he went for 25. I think the difference is what you found in the fourth quarter against Florida State with tempo was you found rhythm with your offense. And against Southern, you found a way to creatively get Kayshon Boutte the ball, even if teams are trying to take him away. So I think the biggest mismatch in the game is LSU's receivers, LSU's skill guys on the outside. I don't think it's going to be seamless, but I think LSU is going to find a way to get them the ball to pop big plays. Like we saw with Jeray Jenkins late in the game. It's just, that's the difference. And I don't think Mississippi State has those. I know they don't have those athletes on the perimeter offensively. So
is John Emery playing?
John Emery is going to play, but I don't think it matters, quite honestly. A lot of people have talked about John Emery this week, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope we come back and he's got a 100-yard game. But Brian Kelly has downplayed John Emery this week because he hasn't played in so long. Doesn't sound like they're going to try to overuse him. But behind that offensive line, I don't know that it matters. You can be the best running back in the world. If you can't block, it doesn't matter. And I don't know that this line can. They haven't proven they can yet through 2 games. So I'd like to see them continue to progress. I do think Emory Jones is going to start at right tackle. Brian Kelly said he's going to continue rotating tackles. He mentioned Emory Jones by name. I think they're going to start him. They started Cam Wire at right tackle the first game. They started Miles Frazier last week. I think they'll start Emory Jones this week. And so it means you're 2 tackles. If that happens, I don't know anything. I'm telling you, but if that, or at least Emory Jones is going to play a lot. You'll have 2 true freshman offensive tackles on the field with Campbell and Jones. So that's unenviable, but it's about learning and growing and building throughout the season and for the future as well. You got to figure out who you like where so you can put your best 5 out there in the right combination. So all that said, there's 2 major things. One, State's got a major special teams issue on their own. They missed 2 PATs last week and switched kickers. Last year, Mike Leach made a call for walk-ons. Anyone in the student who wanted to come try out for kicker. They brought in 2 transfers, and they still aren't settled. So as uneasy as you may be and I may be about LSU's kicking situation, so is Mississippi State. So if it comes down to a kick, it isn't a given for them. And the other thing is the travel. I never minimize situation. The reason I'm so bullish on A&M this week is they are going to bounce back. Like, they got embarrassed. It's just human. They got embarrassed. They're going to respond. And Max Johnson's a good player. I think A&M's going to win that game and win it easily. I think BYU going to Oregon is tough. Emotional win, storm the field, all that stuff. Now you got to get on a plane and go to one of the hardest places to play in college football. That's a tough situation. I think for Mississippi State, what we talked about, you went 2 time zones over, you traveled, you lost a day, all that stuff, and now you got to travel again to Baton Rouge, and it's going to be Saturday night and full. And I think LSU is going to win this game. I think they're going to find a way to win it. And I think you're going to see a game and a final score similar to what you saw against Florida State. That was 27-26. I could see something like a 27-24 game. I think something within a field goal that goes LSU's way. I think this time at home they make enough plays to win it. What you got?
I like that. Everything you just said. I love it.
All right. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.